Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Clap of the hands to Miss Konst. Clap of the hands to Miss Konst. I've given Nomiki a hard time in maybe one or two videos. But on this one, she gets all the credit in the world. She did a good fucking job. Democratic Unity Reform Commission. Democratic Unity Reform Commission. They get into this conversation about how the money is spent. Where is the money going? How's the money spent? And who the money is spent on? And Nomiki Konst flips out. She flips the fuck out. In a good way. I don't say that as a bad thing. I mean, what does a person do when they're, looking at injustice in the face? Are they just supposed to take this in this passive way? Or are they supposed to actually flip out? There are times where you flip out. I'm not saying this rises to the level of injustice from the standpoint of a civil rights thing. But certainly, as somebody who considers themselves in the Democratic Party, being Nomiki Konst, and as a Democratic functionary, she sees something that is like, oh my God, are you fucking kidding me? And I'm going to let Nomiki do her own thing, because I don't necessarily want to take anything from it. At the end of this, I do want to talk about this, but I'm going to let Miss Konst do her thing. She's spitting fire. I'm going to let her spit her fire. All right, this.
Okay. This smells. This doesn't just smell to the public right now that the budget of the party was never put before. Forget about the budgetary committee for a second. Put before the people who have a fiduciary responsibility. Whether it's Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, whether it's Donna Brazile when she was chair, when she was vice chair, or Vice Chair Ray Buckley, or Dr. Jim Zogby over here. That's over half the executive committee right there. Had no idea where the money was going. We spent $1 billion, lost the easiest presidential race you could possibly imagine, with joint fundraising agreements. State parties weren't being funded. During the DNC chairs race, there were some state party chairs who said, I'm an acting executive director and I have $3,000 cash on hand. How are you supposed to rebuild the party if you have no idea where that money was spent? And you know what? I did go through FEC filings, and it doesn't look good. It smells. We're talking about close to $700 to $800 million between the joint fundraising agreement and the DNC being spent on 5 consultants. This is not a public outrage issue. The DNC chairs are upset. The officers are upset. And I don't know who's on the Budget and Finance Committee. I did go to the meeting. It was 15 minutes long, and there was a pie chart that was put on screen. Yeah. But I would, as a Democratic Party member of this commission, we have a duty, and people are watching us right now. The number one issue I get asked out in the public by DNC members is, what are you going to do about the budget? It is absolutely ridiculous that we are going to keep a status quo system when it basically says we're going to continue to lose 1,200 seats. Let me describe what losing 1,200 seats looks like, or the remaining seats we have. If you're in Trump, yes, but let's break that down a little bit. If you're in Arizona and you have an ectopic pregnancy, you can't go to a Planned Parenthood clinic because it's gone, because that state legislature is lost. So you have to drive over to New Mexico. And if you bleed to death on the way, you know whose fault that is? In my mind, that's a Democratic Party that wasn't funded, recruiting candidates, investing in local parties. And that is our fault, because we have put that money to the top 5 consultants. And part of that has to go to the conflicts of interests. This is outrageous. It's unethical. It's bad governance. And frankly, it's fucking, corruption. So if we do want to look at this Budget and Finance Committee, I advise that it be an elected Budget and Finance Committee. We have very clear standards of oversight, and that it is not just looking at past budgets, but putting forth a budget for debate with the people who have a fiduciary responsibility in that room, so that they can find out, is this an open bid contract? Because the budget, Congresswoman Fudge mentioned it doesn't have to do with vendors. Well, the majority of the budget goes to vendors. So we have to have a conversation about who are those vendors. I agree. And that would happen through a Budget and Finance Committee or another committee. But I think what's key is that committee has oversight and it is elected. Because right now these committees are stacked with whoever the chair decides is on the committee. And I don't know what the chair's interests are because, he's been chair for 8 months. I don't know who he's in line with. But we don't have time. We have a freak in the White House and state legislatures controlled by Republicans, and poor state party chairs like Jane Kleeb having to go out there and fundraise on her own because the Democratic Party isn't able to allocate money. Well, all that money, we went to presidential races, but it was burned, lit on fire. And who suffers as a result of some consultants getting third, fourth, and fifth homes? The American people. People being rounded up by ICE. Let's keep this in perspective right now. We have a duty here, and it is not just a duty to our committeemen and the status quo. It's a duty to the American people, to the Democratic Party members, to the DNC chairs, to the DNC members, the executive committee members, and the people who have a fiduciary responsibility.
Doc.
Yes. 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 I love that. I fucking love that. I absolutely love that. Including dropping the F-bomb. I love it. I don't want to undercut it. So there are things I want to say that puts other stuff in a dim light, but I don't want to undercut that. That's right. That's right. She couldn't have said it better. She couldn't have said it better. Clap of the hand for Nomiki Konst. Good fucking job. It's funny, that woman is sitting there like, yeah, we might have lost 1,100 seats, and we lost the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and we lost the presidency to a maniac, but I never expected a lesson from this woman on our failures. I would have never started this Unity Commission if I had to sit here and listen to someone bitch at all the failure that we've done throughout the United States. And I love the fact that she put it in real world terms. It's not this ethereal thing of this particular person failed miserably. There's certain issues. And here's the thing, man. You may hear me all the time say that there's the parties understand and agree on reality the way the reality is. That's true. But one distinction in the party is the Democrats hug identity. They hug it. They hug it like nobody's business. And yeah, they hug identity because they don't want to necessarily talk about class and all these other distinctions that actually need to be talked about. It's their political gimmick, if you want to call it. But the gimmick is real. I mean, them shutting down the Planned Parenthood clinic, the gimmick is real in some cases. Gimmick is real in some cases. The ICE thing, fuck that. Obama was rounding up Hispanics left and right. Leave that off the table. But if we're talking about just basic issues of identity where one party is full of religious maniacs and the other party is apathetic towards the issue, yeah, apathy is a little bit better than somebody being a fucking maniac. She put it in real world terms. I like it. I love it. I love that. Here's the catch. The Unity Reform Commission has no binding power at all. These are just recommendations that they're making to the larger DNC. Not to mention to even rules committees, meaning their recommendations have to go through other committees that then have to go through the top of the DNC. There is no expectation whatsoever. There can't be an expectation that is going to make it through all those layers completely intact with no changes to the provisions that these guys recommend. And even then, the entirety of the Democratic national thing needs to vote on. The edifice that is the DNC needs to vote on the rule set and the rule change. I don't want to undercut the speech because I like it. I do like it. They have nearly $1 billion. $1 billion. All these people who sent money to the Democratic Party. All of these people who were terrified of the other guy the Democratic Party got to send their hard-earned cash to them. Some of this money was coming from, plutocrats and everything else, so fair enough. But you have a lot of con people out there in the public who believes that this party stands up for their interests. They took that money and burned that money on five corporations or 5 consultants. Not corporations, I'm sorry, consultants. That's a lot of money to spend to lose that much. That's amazing. That is amazing. And she said, this looks like corruption to me. Yeah, that looks like corruption to me too. It's not open bid contracts, none of that stuff. They're in smoke-filled rooms choosing who they want. And yeah, it makes perfect sense that Deborah Wasserman-Schultz chose certain consultants that were going to back up their particular version of the world, their candidate. So yeah. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I'm not gonna undercut it. It's just, it's this thing of yes, I'm angry. I don't know how many people saw that speech. In addition to not knowing how many people saw that speech, regardless of how many people saw it, that thing needs to filter upwards. And as it filters up, how much of the rule set is going to remain intact? Meaning, how much of the things that they negotiated with, particularly about super delegates and open primaries. I mean, come on. If you're Bernie Sanders and you're trying to make a run for the presidency, and one of the things that kneecapped you were closed primaries and super delegates, and the war that you're waging is on super delegates, open primaries, when those things filter up, the best recommendation you got was for them to keep the process rigged by 40%. We want to keep the process rigged by 40%. That's our deal. But we'll open primaries. So yes, we'll rig it by 40, but we'll at least open primaries. And again, this still has to go to the top. So the DNC has to vote on whether or not to take its boot off of the democratic process by 60%. It's fucking amazing. I can't believe we're having this conversation about making sure something stays undemocratic by a percentage factor. It's only in political correctness. The second part, the super delegates thing, the open primaries thing. Yes, what their recommendation says makes sense to me. Fair enough, I understand that. But is it going to be part of the entire DNC? Meaning, is the DNC going to vote to say yes on that? I'm curious, man. I'm fantastically curious. Tom Perez had purged a ton of people out of the DNC, particularly in certain positions. If I'm not mistaken, the Rules Committee. If I am not mistaken, he put in his people in those slots and got rid of people who were supporting Sanders and Ellison. Meaning, if I am not mistaken, I don't think I'm wrong on this. When this filters up, one of the first few things it's going to filter into is the Rules Committee, which is full of the people that he wanted in that committee. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And either way, it still needs to be voted on by the entirety of the DNC. If the DNC says, no, we gave you that reform commission because ultimately we needed you to be away from us and we made it to look like we were doing something with regards to reform and we needed to put you somewhere, we'll let it filter up and we'll vote on it. But we needed to put you somewhere. We need to make it look like something was taking place. And yes, you're going to have to filter up through multiple levels in order to even get a vote. Look, I don't mean to be cynical on this. I guess my feeling is this one of those things like, is Neo still in the Matrix? Like when Morpheus looks up at the camera and he says to himself, is this real? Is this real? Doesn't know anymore. He doesn't know. It's a happy ending. Is it really a happy ending? Meaning, why does Neo have powers in the Matrix? And Revelin, the second season, why does he have powers? He was supposed to be out the Matrix. Why does he still have powers? Meaning, is it possible that what all of them were experiences were still a simulation? Simulation within a simulation. Somewhat abstract. I'm just making this point of, is it possible that the entirety purpose of the Unity Reform Commission was just so this could be put off to the side, and at some point through normal democratic processes, those people will be weeded out, while at the exact same time, Bernie Sanders is jumping around the country trying to sheepdog people into the Democratic Party? Is this a dog and pony show? Purely for the standpoint of just trying to get people into the party, getting Sanders to agree to something as long as some process that doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things, potentially, proceeds. Yes, I'm cynical. But this is politics. And these guys come up with all sorts of contraptions and reasons for doing things that aren't necessarily that overt. If everybody knows what you're doing, then what you're doing becomes somewhat perfunctory. It's the things that people don't necessarily piece together. Like a CIA agent working for some kind of Washington Post or Washington working for the New York Times. Or the way the CIA used to pay off these government services or all these people in order to try to change the world around the United States public. Operation Mockingbird. It seems fantastic when you think about it. It's like, why the hell would the CIA, why is the CIA fucking around doing that? You have this issue of who rules or who controls things. No, that's not a minor conversation. This is not you and Bob angry at work. This is somebody actually trying to take over the control of the apparatus itself. And in this situation, one of the major parties being the gateway to that apparatus of power. What do if you had a workable point of view of the world, this kind of corporate Democrat point of view, and you have these rebel rousers who are pissed off and making a fuss of it and breaking away from your party, and your first thought is, we need to get those people back in line. No, we don't want the change. We need to get those people back in line. Would you give them a Unity Reform Commission to make them feel like something they're doing, some action that they're taking has actually some real world consequences? Wait and see. I mean, the only thing you can do is see how does the votes go, keeping an eye on the process. I am fantastically curious about this. If these people come back, the DNC, and they say, yeah, superdelegates thing, no, we're not getting rid of that. No. That's cute of you to put that forward, but no. And open primaries, hell no. No, we're not doing that either. If they say no to you on both fronts, what do you do? What do you do? Are you still dim enter? Are you still boarding the ship? We're boarding the ship and you dim exiters are full of it. Is that still your position? And yeah, this is ran over massively because I've jumped into another topic that I didn't necessarily mean to jump into. But I'm immensely curious. I've heard Nomiki Konst's argument in regards to the dim enter argument that they're boarding the ship in a process that can be vetoed by something that's not even the entirety of the DNC. You're boarding the ship. Okay, you're boarding the ship. Say for the moment that all of your boarding party is shot in the face. Your entire boarding party is shot in the face. Do you turn around and say, okay, you beat us. Fair enough. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Are you still dim enter? Are you still dim enter to the very end? Is it dim enter forever? Is that the policy? Is there any point along this way where you said to yourself, okay, they're just not that into us? Is there any point? I'm just curious. I'm going to end it at this. This has gone too long. This is what I mean. I didn't want to undermine it. Like I liked her video. I like her getting in their ass, even if it's just like, God damn it, this woman. Why do I have to listen to this woman give us a lesson of, about us failing so much, about the real world consequences of the failures that we've taken on? It's like I wish you would have gotten to economic issues. This thing of, why are people in this particular situation throughout the country? How do you give 95% of the wealth to the top 1%? Yes, all of that stuff. All of that stuff. You can pick a female clinic thing because that's the most straightforward way of trying to get it across, I guess. But yeah, economics too. They're failures on economics. And you heard the guy in the background yell, Trump. Trump. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, Nomiki Konst is never going to see this video, but clap of the hands. And if she does ever see this video, I am immensely curious. Are you dim enter forever? Is that what we are? Like, I can take this argument of the moderate in this case, because yeah, from our relative standpoint, she's the moderate, I'm the radical, I guess. But is it dim enter forever? At which point do the failures become too much? At which point does betrayal become too much? Is there a point? Do you stay the abused spouse in perpetuity forever? That's what I'm asking. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. And if so, please create the demarcation point for me. Give me the line in the sand so I know when we get to that line that you're not just going to say, okay, just a little bit more. I want to know. I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm immensely curious. That's all. I will leave it at that. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.